Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
More coherent than Hilaria Baldwin at a Spanish class. It is O'Connor and Company with Larry and Julie. Coming up at 6:35, Cal Thomas will join us at 7:05. Lindsay Burke of Heritage Foundation, she's testifying today about K through 12 school spending on Capitol Hill. 7:35, Guy Taylor, Washington Times. Latest out of Gaza, it's Larry O'Connor y Julia Gunlock. I'm trying to do more Hilaria Baldwin type presentations.
I appreciate it. Good morning.
I thought you would. Good morning to you. So yesterday we talked about we almost got taken off the air because of some of the things we were saying about. We were just reading the chat room.
I didn't do anything.
We're a team. We go down together.
Someone was having a little too fun with the NSA sex chat room stuff. So and it wasn't me.
I didn't find it fun. I found it fascinating. Is all. I'm curious. To remind you, investigative journalist Christopher Rufo has a source that revealed to him that an internal chat room is set up on the NSA's network that is accessible by various alphabet soup intelligence agencies, included some chat rooms specifically about sex fetishes and transgender procedures, LGBTQ life. You know, it's all under the idea of inclusion and diversity that I guess the NSA felt obliged to put this stuff out there and make it available to their employees, lest they be called bigots. Because, you know, your national security apparatus and the intelligence community needs to do this. They got to let off some steam, Julie, and they got to do this on company time.
Yeah.
Now, this was obviously this caught a lot of people's attention. Yesterday, two developments. First, Christopher Rufo now has revealed another chat room, or excuse me, it's the same chat room, I believe, but they started engaging in political discussions. And shock of all shocks, these people all hate Trump. And they all hate Tulsi Gabbard. Yes, I know.
Wait, what?
Shocked. One of the employees who's, again, of course, everybody's name is redacted from this, obviously. But their pronouns are right there next to their names and their handle in the chat room.
Yeah.
One of them had a they, them, basically laid out many examples of how they or them plan on, although I think they, them is just one person, but it could be a conspiracy of many because it is they, them, are attempting to undermine Tulsi Gabbard before she even came in and took over as the ODNI. Called Tulsi Gabbard fervently anti-queer, called Tulsi Gabbard a Russian agent and a member of the MAGA cult. I'm sorry, are we still doing the White House Correspondents Association story? There could very well be some crossover here. Is this not a chat room from Eugene Daniels at Politico? Tulsi Gabbard appeared on Jesse Waters' Fox News show yesterday and had quite a bit to say about it. Here, let's check out Cut 10.
Well, Jesse, what we're going to do has already been done. There are over 100 people from across the intelligence community that contributed to and participated in this, what is really just an egregious violation of trust, what to speak of like basic rules and standards around professionalism. I put out a directive today that they all will be terminated and their security clearances will be revoked. But the thing here, Jesse, is we got to take a step back because this is just barely scratching the surface. When you see what these people were saying, and thanks to Chris Rufo for putting it all out online, they were brazen in using an NSA platform intended for professional use to conduct this kind of really horrific behavior. And they were brazen in doing this because when was the last time anyone was really held accountable? Certainly not over the last 4 years, certainly not over the last 10, maybe 20 years. When we look at some of the biggest violations of the American people's trust in the intelligence community. So today's action in holding these individuals accountable is just the beginning of what we're seeing across the Trump administration, which is carrying out the mandate the American people gave him. Clean house, root out that rot and corruption and weaponization and politicization, so we can start to rebuild that trust in these institutions that are charged with an important mission of serving the American people, ensuring our safety, security, and freedom.
Yeah, earlier in the day, Rufo had posted on X that Tulsi Gabbard is preparing a memo directing all intelligence agencies to identify the employees who have participated in the NSA's obscene, pornographic, and sexually explicit chat rooms and to terminate their employment and revoke their security clearances. Deadline Friday. Within an hour, Tulsi Gabbard replied to that post and said, "Memo sent. We know who they are. Action is underway." And there you heard her last night on Jesse Waters.
Yeah, and look, we need to take this really seriously. There is going to be people out there who defend these people talking on this chat room, saying they were just having conversations. These were just this was just work chatter. This was like standing around the water cooler conversation. Which, by the way, I never heard a conversation like that around the water cooler. However, you're going to get these people that are saying this, and we had a hint of what was going on here in 2018 when Reality Winner, remember her? She was an NSA translator who was convicted of leaking intelligence information to the media. She actually told the FBI that she was triggered by Fox News being on in her workplace. So think about that. You had this NSA official with access to very sensitive intelligence information leaking stuff because Fox News was, imagine how some of these people at the NSA, these radical leftists, are reacting to Trump being reelected. So look, I'm not saying that all of them are going to turn out to be these traitorous leakers like Reality Winner, but I do think that this is something we really need to be concerned about. There is a culture at NSA that needs to be rooted out.
Right. No, clearly. Listen, it makes the whole Bradley Manning thing make sense if you think about it, actually. And it also explains, I always want to bend over backwards and reiterate that we cherish our listeners who were part of the national security apparatus. We did our Wine Outlets event over in Falls Church. And a bunch of, just up the street from Langley, and a bunch of our listeners and a bunch of the people in the Larry Wine Club said, "Yeah, I'm an analyst. I'm an analyst." Like, we know what you're talking. I work here in Langley. I'm an analyst. Understood. Say no more. It explains, though, why a lot of our listeners say, they go to work, they have to make sure that they're listening in their earbuds, or they imagine sitting in their cubicle and having O'Connor and Company on a little speaker, so that maybe the person in the cubicle next to them could hear it. That you can't do. But you can talk about, all of the sex toys and various body parts and fetishes that were going on here. Tulsi Gabbard, again, has rooted them out. She is now in charge, and there is accountability. Somebody replied to this, by the way, to Christopher Rufo on X and said, well, this is going to destroy U.S. intelligence capabilities. By doing this, right? And Rufo.
I love that it was a guy named Anatoly.
It was a guy named Anatoly.
Okay, Anatoly.
Rufo replied and said, "Yes, trans fetishists are the backbone of our democracy. They won the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, both the World Wars. Without them organizing gangbangs on NSA servers, we'll cede global hegemony to China. The only thing she fears is trans joy. Don't let them win." Yes, I think the Republic will still stand after the transgender fetish chat room is shut down and the participants are stripped of their clearances. Otherwise, what else would John Brennan be doing with his time?
Good point.
It's 6:15. WMAL. I've always thought about that guy. WMAL.
WMAL, making sense of the news.
I love those Real Clear sites, right? We love Real Clear Politics. We focus on Real Clear Politics quite a bit at Clearinghouse for polls and such, tracking polls, elections. We're all over Real Clear Politics. Love Tom Bevan over there. And of course, Real Clear Investigations. Mark Hemingway does some great work over there. Susan Crabtree as well. And then, did you know, Julie, that they have this subdivision called Real Clear Health?
They do.
I know you do, because I clicked on it and I see an op-ed from our little Julie Gunlock, all grown up writing op-eds at Real Clear Health. And so if people don't know, for a bulk of your career, in terms of your writing, your analysis, your op-eds, your testimony, and various things that you've done through your other job functions outside of WMAL, which is a recent development in your career. You
Yeah.
have focused on health issues, especially from a mother's perspective. And so I actually think this is a really clear-eyed sort of take on the sort of new regime in Health and Human Services and why RFK Jr. is where he is right now. And I'd love for you to expand on it.
Yeah, well, thanks. I had this. This is a co-written op-ed between me and Carrie Lucas, another friend of the show. And
We love Carrie
We
Lucas.
love Carrie Lucas, and Carrie Lucas and I have talked about this issue of RFK, and there's a lot of fears about RFK and doubts and uncertainty about RFK. But the one thing that he wants to do is restore trust in public health, which many believe has been broken beyond a point of repair. And we looked at some of the reasons. We're currently, everybody's focusing on food dyes and let's ban this and is he gonna ban certain vaccines. But what I think is his more important role, and really his primary role, is to restore trust in health officials. And they do. The public health division in this country, it does have an important role. It's supposed to warn us of things like pandemics. It's supposed to tell us, these things will help you avoid these diseases. So they do have an important role. And yet we have been lied to. The American public has been lied to from these very officials who are supposed to be telling us the truth. And we saw that with COVID. We saw that with the transgender madness of the medical community telling parents, oh, you have to affirm your child's maybe fleeting wish to be an opposite sex. We've seen it in so many cases. We've seen it in nutrition science where 1 minute, coffee's going to kill you. The next minute it's good for you. The next minute red wine is bad. And then meat is bad. And then, no, you should eat grains. No, you shouldn't eat grains. You should eat meat and fat.
Thank you.
Again,
what about
it's like
eggs? We were told eggs would kill you.
They nearly destroyed the egg industry in this country. I always talk about my poor father is still angry that he went 20 years having egg white omelets. He's, every once in a while he'll bring it up. They just reversed that just out of the blue.
Oh my God, let it die, Dad. Jeez.
So the public health has been a problem in this country way before COVID. There's work to be done. And actually, it will take a disruptor like RFK to mend it. And that's why I think there's a lot of moms out there who kind of feel like, hey, let's go. This guy's on our side.
I agree. And all they want to focus on is vaccines and you're right. And some of the concerns over additives in food. But the summary of this, and it is a great op-ed, and we'll share it, and we want to make sure everybody sees it. It's at Real Clear Health, Julie Gunlock, Carrie Lucas. But my sort of executive summary is, if you're upset that RFK Jr. is heading up Health and Human Services, look in the mirror, pal. Look in the mirror. You have only yourself to blame.
We still have yet to have an apology from Fauci or Birx or all of those people who lied to us. What about the American Medical Association and the Pediatric Association? Where's their apology for ruining a generation of kids because they were okay with closed schools? Again, this is it's time for some reflection, and instead of knee-jerk attacking RFK, maybe we should be hopeful that he could bring some real change.
Well said. 621.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
6:37, O'Connor and Company, a very busy Wednesday morning here as we try to stay on top of all of these things going on in Washington, D.C., from the government to Doge to the media to, well, the Oscars are coming up. There's everything. And joining us at 7:05, Lindsay Burke, Heritage Foundation, talk about a hearing today about funding for K through 12 schools. And then at 7:35, Guy Taylor. Oh, yeah, Gaza. We forgot that. That's a big deal, too. Lot going on. It's Larry O'Connor and Julie Godlaw.
Good morning.
Right now, it's Cal Thomas, syndicated columnist, who I know is very upset about the president's move here through Caroline Leavitt with regard to the White House Correspondents Association. I don't know. Listen, Cal, I mean, there is a role for the White House Correspondents Association, but at the same time, I'm not. Given the fact that they spend most of their authority and power and influence and controls over the White House press corps to basically cover up Joe Biden's failing health, I'm sorry, my heart isn't yearning for them to be the champions of the First Amendment here.
Yes, you're so right. And by the way, good morning, my fellow inseminated people. It's nice to be with you again.
Who told
this
you?
governor of Wisconsin is a nutbird. I just wonder how Hallmark Cards is going to redo the Mother's Day cards. Can it get any crazier?
Oh, Cal.
Yeah, I stopped going to these mutual back scratching, to put it nicely, on a family radio station events years ago. It's basically a bunch of liberals renting tuxedos and gowns, getting together in a ballroom, and listening to things they already agree with. If it's a Democrat, sucking up to him or her, and if it's a Republican, trashing them. And the comedians are not funny. It used to be really great, but they had people like, I don't know. Years ago I went to them and they were good, but now they're just worthless in my view.
Well, and it was sort of when they did years ago, when they would have a comedian, it was more like a good-natured ribbing if they had a comedian making fun of the president, or a sort of mild roast. But today they have these comedians saying truly vile things. But Cal, I'm curious if you think any of this will help. Is the White House Correspondents Association, is it sort of beyond repair? Will there need to be something new created, or do you think maybe this will improve the media and improve how the media covers the White House, at least conservatives, or Republicans, I should say?
Well, there's no real coverage anymore, Julie, and there are really very few White House correspondents. You get these passes, you go sit in the briefing room. These are not people who, as they used to do in my day, back when I was with NBC, who sit in cubicles, who try to develop relationships with people, professional relationships with people in the White House staff, and actually report things. It's basically leaks and press releases and the press secretary and standing outside with the White House in the background and doing your stand-ups for the evening news. There's really no correspondence anymore like there used to be.
Cal, a lot of news about the JFK files, and Congresswoman Luna was originally going to release these files. Then she announced she was going to have a hearing with still living members of the original investigation, and now I don't know where it stands. And I'm curious about where you stand on the JFK files, whether there is a conspiracy there, whether all the documents should now be released. What do you think?
Well, as you've read, I'm sure Clint Hill, the Secret Service agent who leaped on the back of the Kennedy car on November 22nd, 1963, tried to protect the president and Mrs. Kennedy, has just died at 93. He did an interview some years ago on 60 Minutes in which he actually took blame. He said, if I had reacted just a second earlier, I might have been able to take the bullet and save the president's life. He later came to terms with that and said, well, maybe not. Maybe I couldn't have done anything anyway. But I think all the files should be released. People want to know these things. They have a right to know these things. We're long past any security problem, I think. I want to see the Epstein files, too. I can't wait for those.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. It's going to sound like an NSA chat room there as you read the Epstein files. Yeah. And finally, what did you think of...
Did you see the Washington Times story this morning about how federal workers were engaged, how to put this in some kind of sex chat room on company time?
Yeah. Oh, yes. We've done a deep dive on it, Cal, as you can well imagine here.
Yeah. Well, just can't cut anything though.
Finally, Cal, as I'm sure you're fascinated by this, all the cries of constitutional crisis here as, DOJ does its job and tries to figure out where there's waste, fraud, and abuse, and finally, after decades, doing something about it. Are you buying any of the cries of constitutional crisis?
Well, thanks for setting up my column of yesterday. No, I'm not at all. And the Democrats are the ones to have created it because they've gone outside the boundaries set by the Constitution by the founders. I found two great quotes in this. Thomas Jefferson said, "The course of history shows that as government grows, liberty decreases." And Calvin Coolidge, our 30th president, said that unless the people, through unified action, arise and take charge of their government, they will find their government has taken charge of them. You can't get better quotes than that.
Yeah.
Well, and you can't get a better writer to amplify those quotes. Cal Thomas, a national hero. Thank you, Cal.
Thank you very much. All right. Take care.
6:43.
Mark Levin, weekdays 6 till 9 on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
Well, we have an update on the United States efforts to end the war in Ukraine. And you remember, Julie, how demands for access to the Ukrainian rare minerals were met with screams and people renting their clothing and lamenting about how this is inappropriate and unprecedented and awful and horrible, and Trump shouldn't do it. Marco Rubio shouldn't even attempt to do this, and it's never going to happen, and it never should happen. And, well, they were all wrong, apparently, Julie Gunlock.
Yeah, there again.
That did once again. They were wrong. Here's Mark Thiessen, Washington Post columnist, sort of laying. He's a former Rumsfeld speechwriter, sort of laying this out yesterday on Fox on where things stand.
When that mineral deal is signed, Russia has lost the war. Because Putin's goal was to conquer Ukraine, and 3 years later, the end result is the U.S. is going into business with Ukraine. We are investing, literally, not figuratively, billions and billions of dollars in a deal with the Ukrainians. If Russia takes over Ukraine, Putin is not going to pay us hundreds of billions of dollars for the weapons that we gave Ukraine to fight his troops. The only way that we get the hundreds of billions of dollars that Trump is negotiating right now is if Ukraine remains a free, sovereign, independent nation with whom we're doing business. And when this deal is struck, I mean, I know Trump has said he's going to have the earth movers and the tractors going in. People are saying they're not U.S. troops involved. He's sending something better. Billions of dollars in U.S. direct investment, U.S. bulldozers, U.S. earth movers to dig up those minerals. And you need free trade, you need ports, you need to export them, and you need peace in order to do that.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. And, you know, for everybody who has been lamenting Trump's position, oh, he's taking Russia's side. Well, how better to take Ukraine's side in this as to make a business deal for them that helps us, solidifies our security relationship with them. And also, you know, one of the biggest criticisms over our aid of Ukraine is, first of all, what's in it for us? I mean, and no offense, I have altruistic, understandings of our role in the world. But ultimately, if you want the American people to care about what happens in Ukraine, you need to give us a vested interest in it.
Exactly right. I mean, I think about the rebuilding of Europe after World War II. We invested in Europe. We wanted Europe to do well, and so we invested not just in putting our military footprint over there, but in investing in businesses. This is these are the same people that are complaining about this. We're all into nation building, right? Years
That's
ago, under the Bush administration, under the sort of more sort of establishment Republican. And these are the people who are I think the Bill Kristols, the sort of bulwark folks who are complaining about this and saying, "Oh, you're just on Putin's side." No, this is actually the kind of, frankly, traditional nation building that sort of the establishment Republicans have been engaged in for decades.
And let's be very clear about this, because the tip of the spear there, you're right, Crystal and Joan and all those people, but Liz Cheney specifically, right?
Oh my God,
Cheney.
Yeah.
Why is that name familiar? Cheney. Didn't we have a vice president who literally made the case on a daily basis as to why we need to spend our young Americans' blood in that desert, but it would be okay because we'll get the oil in the end, right?
Right.
Which I believe is sort of like a rare earth mineral deal, right? Except, hold on. Where is that Iraqi oil that we were promised in the end after 20 years? Do we have access to that oil? No.
We do not.
They never delivered, and yet we've got, American soldiers who are walking around without limbs. They're not walking at all, sadly, horrifically.
Many of them are dead. Yes.
And many of them are dead. And meanwhile, Trump is like, let's end the war. Let's make some peace. And in that peace, we will actually gain from this rare earth mineral deal that we've made with Ukraine. It makes sense to me. I'm not quite sure where the criticism is, except from those people who just want to expand war and have more casualties.
Yeah, that's exactly
It's 6:52.